Welcome back to 40 and Forward, the space where women's health meets real stories, real science, and real sisterhood. Today, we're diving into a topic that affects millions of women, often silently. And Gladys, you're bringing both the research and your lived experience.
Yes, and I would like to remind everybody that this is for educational purposes only. This is all based on my life experience. Some of the facts that I will be sharing today, I've taken from the Mayo Clinic. So there are some facts in this, but this is not for diagnostic purposes. So please do check with your doctor if you're experiencing any one of these symptoms.
So let's start with the basics. Fibroids, what are they?
So uterine fibroids are, really common growth in the uterus. They're not cancer and they almost never turn into cancer, but they can be tiny little seeds or huge, like grapefruits. So some, women have them at all different sizes, and some have many, some have a few, and some don't know that they even have them because they may not cause symptoms for them.
And then there are women like you, who definitely knew something was wrong.
Oh, yes. My periods became so heavy, they wouldn't stop. They went on for months and months and months. I would have to carry a bunch of like pads with me. I had like clothes in my car. I had them in my pocket. There was just so many things that were happening at once. I had to have changes of clothes and things like that. I was exhausted. Things were so unpredictable, and honestly, it was very embarrassing at times.
I am so glad you are no longer suffering. You told me they were so painful too.
Thanks, Lola. Yes, they were. The cramps were nonstop for months on end, and I was becoming anemic. I had low energy. I just had so many things that were happening that were just interfering with my daily life.
Before we get deeper into your story, let's talk about what causes fibroids, because the science is fascinating.
It really is, Lola. Fibroids seem to be influenced by gene changes. So the cells in fibroids look different genetically from normal uterine muscle cells. Hormones also play a factor. So estrogen and progesterone, they help them grow actually. And that's why they often shrink after menopause. Growth factors, so things like insulin like growth factors can play a role, and ECM, extracellular matrix, which is like the glue between the cells, um, is increased in fibroids and makes them, that's what makes them fibrous.
And then there are the risk factors, and some of them hit home for a lot of our listeners.
Yes, so Black women are more likely to get fibroids and get them when they're very, very young. And sometimes they can have some severe symptoms very early on, just like the ones that I was having. Family history also matters too. So, starting your period early, low vitamin D, obesity, high red meat diet, low fruits and vegetables, even alcohol sometimes really does play a factor. So all of these things can be a risk factor for somebody getting fibroids.
So, when did you first get your diagnosis?
So it was after months and months of heavy bleeding and just these severe cramps that would make me like double over. And I was even getting to the point where I was starting to feel dizzy, and I would, feel like I'm fainting, and just all kinds of things that weren't normal for, what would be considered the ordinary period.
So, what options were given to you, and what did you choose?
So my doctor gave me several options. She had said that birth control could be one thing that sort of helps in regulating everything. And then she told me about I forget the exact term, but it's like uterine embolism, where they go in surgically and they burn the blood vessels that feed the fibroids, because the fibroids use, like, they attach themselves to your blood vessels, and that's how they grow and they get their nutrition, so to speak. So they're like little parasites, actually. And so she was like, that could be one. So there would be another test that we would need to do, to see if I'm a candidate for it. But she was like, here are some of the options, right, for people that have fibroids. And then she talked about a hysterectomy. So you can do a full or a partial hysterectomy. So I asked her some more questions. And one thing I found out is if you do the uterine embolization, there's a chance of the fibroids coming back. There's a big chance that the fibroids will come back. And so then you would have to either repeat the process or, go a different route, and things like that. And so what I decided to do was to go the holistic route. So I went vegan, I took natural supplements, and for about 6 months, I was doing it. And then I realized, you know what, I'm still in pain. I'm still having these almost fainting spells. I'm still not, I don't have any energy. I'm still carrying clothes and pads and all these things around with me in the trunk of my car. And so I decided, okay, let's add birth control. Let's see if that'll help. I tried that, and, because I was trying to avoid, the surgical options and things like that, but nothing helped. It didn't help. My quality of life was still slipping away from me. It was still like very hard to, get through my day. Because remember, I'm working a full time job while all this is happening. I'm trying to maintain friendships. I'm trying to go to people's functions that I'm invited to. All of these things are happening. And I'm here struggling with just trying to maintain some form of decorum, is what I'm going to put it as. And so none of those things were working.
That's something so many women don't talk about, the emotional toll.
Yes, Lola, it's not talked about enough. It wasn't just the physical things that were happening, it was the constant planning, the fear of leaking through my clothes, the fatigue, the pain. I felt like my body was working against me.
So, what was your final decision?
So after much time of thinking about it, this was heading into like year two of dealing with this. I decided to go for a hysterectomy. And I have never regretted it. It has given me my life back. I'm no longer anemic. My peace has returned, and my freedom has returned. I'm no longer lugging things around with me. I walk past the pad aisle in Walmart, and I actually smile.
That's powerful. And that's why we're having this conversation, because women deserve information, options, and community.
Yes, all of us certainly do. And that's why I'm glad that we do these segments. And that's why I'm glad we have this podcast that we are working on. So I wanted to clarify something. So I had said year two of dealing with this. No, this is many years of dealing with this, and year two of like focusing on what decision I was going to make. Because remember, it had been many years of dealing with this. I can remember it really started when I initially started doing my master's for my to become a therapist, and it was slowly like building and building and building and building and just dealing with it. um and so by the time that decision making phase of year two came, of making the decision, I had tried the naturalistic route. I had gone almost like a year and a half with the naturalistic route, and then I was really like pondering, like, okay, what am I doing with this? And all the meanwhile, my life is just deteriorating in front of me. Like, I can't do anything. I'm tied to the trunk of my car, literally. Well, not literally, but figuratively speaking. And so, I'm really glad we're having these conversations, because if you are a woman out there and this is something that you're dealing with, I will say go in and sit down with your doctor and have a really, really serious, deep conversation. So one of the decision to have a hysterectomy is a huge decision, because you're taking away your reproductive ability. So you're taking away your ability to have children, and then you're also taking away a major organ that is responsible for sustaining your estrogen levels. And so you may go into menopause earlier than than you originally wanted to. And so it is a huge decision. That's why it took me 2 years just focused on decision making, to make the decision to have a hysterectomy. If you want to have children, the uterine embolization is the best course of action, because you maintain your uterus, and you go and so you maintain your uterus, and you can have the ability to focus on having children and things like that. Now the hope is that the having children piece happens before the fibroids return, and so that's something that it's good to pay some careful and close attention to. But sit down with your doctors, have that deep conversation. The naturalistic route may work for you. So there are some Facebook groups that are dedicated towards women who are talking about their fibroid journey. And some women, in there, when I was in the group, were having really good success with going the naturalistic route. Like, they were being very successful with it. It wasn't a lot of them, but they were. And, they would talk about their periods slowing down, and different things that they were trying that was being helpful, and none of those things were helping me. And so, all of our bodies are very different, and the fact that it was helpful for people made me go that route first, because that was the safest route to go first. Is the naturalistic route, where there's no surgery going on, there are no extra chemicals being added to your body, all those different things. So I would say sit down, um, talk with your doctor, really think about it, give yourself some time. Like, I took the 2 years just on the decision making portion of it. I will emphasize that a lot. But yeah, I feel so free. I can wear white again. So there is a project, a nonprofit that's called the White Dress Project, and they're called the White Dress Project because when you're dealing with fibroids, you do not wear white. Like, you just don't put yourself in that situation, because you could leak through your clothing, and then that just becomes embarrassing, and nobody wants to deal with that. And so yeah, so I would say, if you're dealing with fibroids and you're going through the stress of it all, take some time, talk with your doctor, sit with yourself, and see what will work for you as a person. Think of yourself like, okay, in the next couple of years, where do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? What do I want to be experiencing? And things like that. So don't think about this immediate suffering that you're going through. Think about what the decision you'll make, how it'll impact you over the next couple of years. That is something that's really, really important to do when you're sitting with yourself and you're thinking about it. How will this decision that I have made impact me over the next couple of years?
Gladys, I want to thank you for always being so vulnerable with us. Thank you to all those who are listening. Please leave a comment so that we can know that you find value in what we are discussing. We would love to interact with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. There is so much more to discuss.